Hey everyone, welcome to Optimize for Humans. My name is Usha. I'm your host and executive coach and consultant, and we're going to be exploring AI transformation and how to optimize it for humans. Today, I'm speaking with Kristen Duckett, who's CHRO of WorldStrides, and I'm really excited to have you here, Kristen. Welcome. I'd love to start by asking you to share a little bit about your background and what excites you about this topic.
Sure, happy to. Great to be here, Usha. So I would say I cut my teeth in HR as an executive recruiter, and that really kind of the start of my career of really wanting to understand human beings and why they make the career choices they do, why they leave one job to go to another. After executive recruiting at a firm, I went in-house at a large financial services company, and I did executive recruiting there. Pivoted over to more of an HR business partner role, where I had that role for a number of years at different large corporations. Before coming to WorldStrides, I was the head of HR for a small tech startup. And I would say that's probably one of my favorite experiences I've had to date, simply because I had to build the HR function from scratch with a very small but nimble team and learn all corners of HR with a really motivated, fun group that was focused on technology. And then I joined WorldStrides, and I'm really, really excited to be at WorldStrides. We are one of the largest providers of student educational travel, group and individual, from elementary all the way to higher ed. And we send about 500,000 students each year on one of our trips.
Awesome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I'd love to start by exploring like how are you and your leadership team thinking about AI and this transformation?
I think every leadership team is thinking about AI to some extent, right? You can't escape it. It's in the news, it's in all of the business articles, and I think so many companies now are thinking about how do I infuse my company with a level of AI that's not only just from a mental standpoint, we're on board with it, but also practical. How are we getting it so that employees actually are touching it, experiencing it, using it day to day? That's probably more end state. I think when we think about what we would like to do near term at WorldStrides, we've just kicked off an AI ERG that's open to all employees across the company. We have 1,500 employees globally. And I think that's a really important part because you want to build this community of practitioners at all levels, right? We have some people in the ERG who are, I wouldn't say advanced, but maybe, I mean, depending on what advanced looks like these days, they're advanced compared to me for sure. Very advanced, very curious. And then you have people who are kind of just stepping into it and just not sure what to expect, not sure what it is. But if you have everyone joining a community where they're like-minded and they want to learn and understand AI better, by forming that community, we've allowed people to kind of explore, ask questions in a comfortable space. We're also doing demos where we can show other employees, like, this is what your colleague built. So we're early days here, but I'm really excited about kind of the community that we're building.
That's really cool. I think one of the things that stands out to me around these AI tools is they're really not like singular use. There's so many things you could do with it. And I know in my own life, like I've been inspired by how other people have approached how to use the many tools. So I think it's great that you're actually creating a space for people to share their specific use cases because I think it unlocks possibilities across the board. And I'd love to learn more about like what are your ambitions around this and how are you thinking about the risk?
So ambitions, as I said, I think I'd really like it to get to the point where every employee at WorldStrides either has an understanding, has touched AI, has used AI in their day to day. I think that's where kind of the magic happens. But to get there, like I said, we're doing some demos. We're showcasing some of the work we're doing. I'll give you an example of what we just rolled out recently. So I think one of the best ways to do it is to think about where are your pain points. Whatever function you're in, whatever job you're in, we all have pain points as employees. And so one of the pain points in HR, and many HR folks will relate to this, is the annual comp decisioning period, where you have a number of managers, a number of people involved in this, having to all make decisions on bonus and merit, et cetera. And so in the past, what we had used was massive spreadsheets, like one major spreadsheet. We would cut the spreadsheets into different ones just for the manager's information. And you had version control, it was just a mess, right? And so recognizing that that was a pain point in the past, we thought, okay, what can we do to make this better? Well, if we can create a front end that all managers and all leaders access. They can only see their team, they can see downstream, they have visibility into their full budget, whether it's bonus or merit. They have visibility into how the performance management piece of our process has impacted that. So what we have a 1 to 5 rating system, and each rating corresponds to a certain bonus multiplier. That's all baked into the tool. So all of that is done for the manager. And the beauty of it is it allows them to see with a sliding scale, how does my decision impact my total budget? And if I want to give this person more, I have to take a less, take some from this other person. And I think that visibility has been really helpful. Not only the visibility for the manager themselves to be able to make those choices and see the trade-offs, but it's also the visibility of the AI tool itself, because we've been vocal about the fact that this was built in-house. This was built over the span of a couple months. Jordan on my team was really the driver behind this. And we kind of brainstormed what would look great. This is what we thought would be the end state. And he was able to build it over the span of a couple of months. And we connected with IT to make sure we could have single sign-on. Anytime you're dealing with people data, salary data, all of that, you have to be really, really, really careful. So we made sure that we had data governance in place and that we had single sign-on. And I will say, we rolled it out a couple weeks ago. It's, there's not without its bugs, as with anything that's new, but overwhelmingly, it's been really popular, and we've gotten really great feedback from our leadership. And so I think it's a twofer. We were able to create the visibility into their own budgets, and we were able to give a real life example of how AI can impact them in their day-to-day.
Yeah, and I love that all of this was created in-house, and you're really just kind of starting with the problem, figuring out like, now what are, all of the tools available to us, and how might you're kind of like imagining a new possibility. Like, that's what I get excited about with these tools, where before, it was always, well, that would be cool. I have these ideas or possibilities, but I don't have the means to go from here to there. And so you would either have to like invest heavily in outside support to get there, or just let go of the idea. But I love that it's kind of democratized the ability to bring new things into being. So
It's
that's
super
a
grassroots. And that's what we're
yeah,
trying to do through the ERG, through other avenues, is to kind of give people a sandbox to play in. So we
yeah.
use Copilot at our company, and we have it protected on the back end. So it allows employees to go in and try different agents, or
Mhm.
use data in a certain way through AI to make their jobs easier, to automate certain things. But they know that it's all protected. All the information that's in there stays kind of within the WorldStrides sphere. So I think that's helpful too, because sometimes there's a level of fear of, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do something and
Yeah,
then get in trouble. Or I don't. And so if you can remove that to some extent,
yeah,
you can drive more of that creativity, and people feel like they can kind of play around and test things out.
yeah. So what are some other ways you incentivize people to, one is just giving them access in a protected way. But what are some other experiments you've tried in terms of incentivizing people?
Well, we're in the process. So I said we're early days into this, but we're in the
Hmm.
process of creating kind of these milestones for learners.
Hmm.
What we want to do is we've established kind of a learning platform for AI at
Hmm.
various levels, how to prompt, right? How to protect the data, all of that. And as employees kind of advance in their learning, it'll unlock a new benefit. So it might be that it unlocks a badge that they can put on their email signature, right? It could be that it unlocks access to a tool that maybe we have to pay for as a company. We don't want to pay for all 1,500 people at once to use a tool, but if we know you're motivated and you're putting in the time and the work to learn and to build something, we'll unlock that access for you. So I think we're in the process of kind of building that out, but I think you have to incentivize people in some way, because it is a lot of work, and a lot of this is side of desk. I think people have their day jobs, and I think that sometimes can be daunting for people to say, how do I fit all of this in while I'm still trying to perform and still trying to get my work done? And so
Hmm.
the key is to make it kind of a natural part of their day to day. And like I said before, identify those pain points, because if you can identify a pain point, and it could be something super simple, and then you can address it, you start to see the aha moments, whether you're as a team or as an individual or even as a company. And that, I think, can be incredibly motivating to people.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when we look at our personal lives, I think for the most part, there's at least some critical mass of people who are naturally incentivized or motivated to try all of these things out to see, how they go. And I think in a work context, there's some fear that's holding people back around like, is this going to replace me? And I really love the way in which you kind of gamified and really kind of put this in a frame of development. So it's not just everyone has access to all the tools, but actually it's sort of a marker of like how someone's growing their own capability over time. And I think it really speaks to that piece of the more we grow our own capability with these tools, the less replaceable we presumably might become, you know?
It's so true. I mean, I think there is that level of fear, but that's why we're trying to take that fear away a little bit and create that psychological safety with the ERG, the communities that we have, that we're all kind of in this. This is new for
Yeah.
almost everybody, right? This only really
Yeah.
came about and really advanced in the last years. And so we're all in this together. That's kind of the mentality that we're trying to, embrace here at WorldStrides. But it's also a very intentional one too, that we recognize that there's opportunity, not only just for the kind of business that we have, where we have very operational areas of our company. There's a lot of areas to automate. And it's about taking away the work that is really tedious and painful for people, letting that be done by AI or automate that or use agents, and then giving you the time back to
Yeah.
do kind of more higher order strategic work that people really crave and they want to be doing day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what a boon for your own employee engagement, right? If actually I can use these tools to free up my time and that's not going to penalize me somehow down the line.
It's actually how we're thinking about it. It is a part of
Yeah,
engagement. And I think
yeah,
I think when people start to realize their company supports them in this
right.
effort and is giving them the space to do the learning, to test things out, to spend time on calls with colleagues,
Yeah,
seeing demos, it shows that we're investing in them because we know it's an important part of how the world's evolving. And we want them to come along with it. We want to bring them along. That's the really important part of how
hmm,
you kind of get your employee population engaged, and not only engaged, but then also producing and seeing the benefit firsthand for themselves or their teams.
yeah, totally. I'd love to also explore like how do you think about hiring from this perspective? Like what are the qualities now that you look for and how might that be different?
I think it's a great question. I think so many HR teams are looking at AI from a how do you screen candidates or how do you write job descriptions, all very valid uses of AI. But we're also looking at not only just the kind of the process piece of it, but the people themselves, as you mentioned. And so we are about to embark on a job architecture effort here at World Strides, and it's going to be heavily skills based. And so we're identifying what are the skills of the future that we're going to need to take the company to the next level. And a lot of that is going to be, embracing innovation, curiosity, comfort with ambiguity. Those are skills, data, comfort with data, willingness to learn. And I think those are going to become more and more important because when you use AI, you have to keep getting better at the prompting and you have to it's important. It's an evolution, right? Just as AI learns, the human being using it learns. And so we want to make sure we're bringing in people who maybe they don't know anything about it. And I'm okay with that. But if they have kind of the will to learn and the aptitude, we want to hire those people and we'll figure out how to train you and how to get you using it. But we want to make sure that we're hiring the people who already come to the company with an energy and an excitement. And they want to learn from their peers and they want to kind of, if they learn something fun or exciting or new, they're able to kind of evangelize that with their teammates.
Yeah, I think there's also a huge opportunity with this to really start separating from positions versus roles or, like and stop thinking about like I am person A, I come in to do, one specific thing and
Right.
that's my job description. And I think there's something about just like embracing the gig economy, if you will, within an organization as well, right? Of like I am person A, I come in with X, here's my skill set and what are the different places in which I can contribute to what we're trying to achieve as an organization and creating more space for that kind of mobility and movement. And there's something about just like creating more openness for what people might bring to the table. So it's less about here are all the things, we need to achieve as an organization, and here are all the kinds of people we need to do these specific things. And I think it becomes more open than that of what's possible if we bring in somebody with this kind of skill set. Where are all of the places where they might be able to contribute? And I think this is especially important to think about for new grads who are entering the workforce right now. I know that a lot of grads at this moment are having a really hard time because so many of their roles are being replaced or automated, which is very understandable from the perspective of the business. But I think there's a larger cost to that as well, for the business and for society as a whole. And I think we're missing out on a whole lot of things because these are people who've grown up with these tools and are probably far more adept at it than you or I might be.
Absolutely. In fact, we just hired someone, recent college grad, who had been having a hard time finding a job. And
Mm.
rather than try to fit him into something that an established role, we kind of created a new role for him. And he's coming in with this fresh perspective. And that's why I do like hiring kind of early career individuals who have kind of this propensity to want to lean into AI. We're unleashing him on various elements of HR that we've had that have been pain points for us. And so under the guidance of a leader, so Jordan has hired this person, and we're asking him, we'll give him some guidance that here's an area that we think is a problem. Like go look and go explore and see what you can do. And we had, within 2 days, he was able to build an agent for us that was really helpful with one area of our recruiting function. And I think it's great because he doesn't come in with this baggage of, oh, we've tried that before, or that's not going to work. I mean, he is at the cutting edge of like some of these technologies. And so we're giving him license to say, hey, go see what you can figure out, go see what you can solve. And it's catching on. People have heard about this hire, and I think more people want that. And you just have to balance. And we purposely set aside headcount to do this, though. That's the thing. We're not blowing the budget on doing this. We've made a choice to say we're going to not hire over here because we're going to bring someone in over here with the thought that he will pay for himself with all of the things he's able to figure out and help solve for us. We're putting him on leave management. Leave management's been a real pain point for us. Very tactical, spreadsheets, all of that. This is something that I think he absolutely can solve. But again, with the guidance of our head of benefits, I mean, he's not just going to come in and start undoing all the work we've done, but with the guidance of an expert, it's like this really nice pairing of like, you think about generational kind of matching up with like coaching. You have someone who kind of is really early in their career, but super skilled in technology, with someone, a senior business leader, who can kind of give them that perspective. That's a great match, right? I love doing things like that. I think it's very similar here, where we're pairing a new entry level AI kind of leaning individual with some of our experts in our HR function. And I think I'm really excited about what it's going to yield.
That's really cool. There's so much that I think to learn from how you're approaching this, Kristen, both in terms of, hiring and how you're thinking about who's coming into the organization and how you leverage people all the way through to starting with the problem and how you're actually incentivizing and kind of inviting people to grow their own capability to play in this. I love what you shared earlier of like, we're all learning our way through this at the moment. I don't think there are true experts in this space because we're all figuring it out as we go. I'd love to spend the last little bit of our time explore, like working through a real scenario together, and just brainstorming together what we might be able to create. And I know you mentioned one of the challenges that you're working through is we have very busy managers, and we're now asking them to do one more thing when it comes to AI adoption. Tell me more about that. Give me a little bit of a flavor of the problem.
Well, we're just rolling out what we call WorldStrides fundamentals, which are a set of core learnings on communication and anti-harassment, et cetera. So that's going to be a part of their learning platform this year.
Yeah.
And those are things we want everyone to have. But we're also now thinking, how do we get people also spending time learning how to use AI? So my concern, and when we talked, was how do you avoid it feeling like one more thing? Oh, this is one more thing I have to do. And so, there's always the carrot and the stick. So you could say, well, this is mandatory. You must spend 5 hours, a month learning AI. Or you could make it more of an incentive and the carrot is saying, if you're able to do this, here's what we're going to unlock. And that's a little bit of back to the incentives that we're going to unlock different levels of advancement for people who are spending time learning. The other thing I'm thinking is, is there a way to demonstrate it? And I'm big on like seeing it tangibly. Is
Yeah.
there a way to demonstrate, much like we did with the comp tool, but this is
Yeah.
for the everyday manager, a benefit that they can have? So I don't know if, as you've talked to other leaders, if they've had the same kind of pain points of like, how do you
For
motivate
sure.
when everyone is so busy and everyone is trying to do the best work they can? It's a little bit chicken and the egg. Like it's, you gotta have to pause to kind of figure out the AI and where can it best help you. But then you have
Mhm.
to pause, and that's taking away time from your day job. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we're hearing from other leaders.
Yeah, I think with managers and leadership in general, I think there are now things there's like insight we can actually surface that we didn't really have access to before. The analogy I have is like a teacher in a school. How do teachers get evaluated? Is when somebody like a principal or whoever comes into the classroom, right? And it's like a curated thing. They're obviously going to be like on slightly different behavior, etc. And they can and they do, I'm sure, ask the kids for feedback, but because of the power dynamic in plays, they may not always get feedback that should be
Right.
taken, without grains of salt involved, if you will. And I think there's also just like not enough mirrors necessarily because of how busy managers are on a day-to-day basis, to really examine like actually how was that one-on-one, like what could I have done differently. And I think now especially with like meeting recordings and things like that, you can actually feed all of that into an LLM and say like, here's what being a good leader means in this organization. Here's what I'd like to champion in terms of being a good leader. So it's the personal values and the organization values. Tell me where I'm like doing really well and where I might be missing the mark or where I can develop. And I think there's just this objective source now that can point to you how you can continually grow and develop. And this isn't exclusive to managers. I think this is something that we can all actually use and leverage of
Right.
actually recognizing like, can I get more feedback on how I'm doing, right? That's one thing. The other thing I think is, so where I'm getting at with this is there's some really tangible ways in which it can take some of the like people management and people leadership roles and actually be a real partner for you in a way that a lot of managers don't tend to have, right? It's a fairly lonely role. I know I've experienced that in the past when I've led people. And now I think there's so much more insight that you can gain from actually working through and coaching that you can get by working through like where are you struggling, etc. So I think there's something about like really surfacing these use cases in the demos that you mentioned as an example of ways in which the problems they are naturally going to encounter can be resolved. I also think meetings can be made so much more effective, and you can actually leverage the tools to get a sense of, where are we doing well and where can we do differently? Where can we do things differently? So there's just something about like continuous improvement and learning that I think this really shortcuts in a way that in the past I would have had to talk to everyone on my team. I would have had to filter through their feedback. I would have to like use my own discernment. And if I have some massive blind spots, like there's only so much I can get at that. But now there's actually like a way in which, there's a tool that can actually identify some very specific examples that point to different things. It feels less personal. Because it's an aggregate of the whole, it's not coming from one person. So I think there are those things that can be really unlocked massively for leaders. So hopefully it doesn't feel like one more thing, but here are ways in which your life can be made easier with these tools. And my hope is that that then becomes an invitation for them to start experiencing that and then sharing that with their teams as well.
I 100% agree. I think how do you embed it in their day to day things they're already
Yeah.
doing as managers, as leaders? It reminded me of one thing we're doing at WorldStrides, which is we're using a tool, it's 11 Labs, and it is known for voice to text, or sorry,
Mm,
text to voice. And we are using it to create kind of these personas of you could have a persona who's a difficult employee. You could have a
Mm,
persona who's a really hard manager. You can make any persona you want. And that allows the user to engage with that persona and role play in a way that's very different from role playing with a colleague. Oftentimes it's the person you're playing role playing with, if they're not really living up to that difficult employee persona, you're not going to get quite that same experience. AI,
yeah,
it can be as difficult as you want to make it. You can kind of program it to be that way,
totally.
right? So I think it's also allows for managers struggle with giving that tough feedback or having kind of an encouraging conversation, or someone's on a performance plan and you really want to make sure that they feel that they have some opportunity to improve. How do
Yeah.
you do that? Well, you can now use these personas and engage with them, practice, and then
Hmm.
have that experience with your employee. And some people might say, well, I don't need the practice. Honestly, we've seen that people who do use the personas, it really does help them gain the confidence. And
Yeah,
and they're not having that one experience with the employee and then it really doesn't go well. They can kind of
right.
practice and make sure when they actually have that conversation, it's meaningful
Right.
and they feel confident in the message they're delivering.
Yeah, and especially for the most difficult conversations, right? Like performance development, or when you're having to like give really tough feedback. And I just think there's something about a tool that gives you some objective reflection. Like I find that really useful of, just having a place to go to and say like, is it me or is there something that needs to be addressed? Am I just really annoyed about or reacting to something that's happening, or actually is there a particular tendency or proclivity, like because not every issue is necessarily, sometimes you have like team dynamics that are playing out, where someone's
Right.
showing up in a certain way and it's not necessarily related to the work but it's very disruptive, etc. I think having that kind of objective support system, I just find is really, it can be really helpful, not to be replaced. Yeah, I don't think anything will replace like human insight and empathy and connection. So I think we should always be encouraging leaders to connect with each other and have that kind of support from each other. But this is also a really great tool.
It just makes really great people better.
Yeah, yeah. Kristen, I'd love to close with just one piece of advice you'd share with leaders out there as they're approaching AI transformation themselves.
I think the big thing is to talk about it with your teams. And I think it's
Mm,
important to share your own learnings, what you're trying. And, the other day I tried to create an agent to manage my personal inbox. It didn't go so well. I have to go back to the tool and figure out what I'm not doing right. But I told my team that, and I'm like, look, it's not always going to be really easy. You got to
yeah,
practice at it. And so I think it's really important just to show the human element that we're all in this together. And the more you talk about it, the more, and I share, articles with my team or different pieces out there that I think are really important or relevant. Just getting them exposure. And I think it's important for leaders to model that curiosity and inquisitiveness, and also talk about the wins and talk about when it doesn't go so well, because it's not always going to go well, but it's the practice and the effort that you put in. That's when you're going to see the benefit.
yeah. I love that. I echo all of that, especially the piece around sharing failures and sharing learnings, right? And there's
Right.
like a real, I think one of the threads throughout our conversation is encouraging continuous learning and continuous iteration and improvement, right? And I do think that's one of the great opportunities we have with these tools, which is it's actually shortcutting feedback cycles and giving us, giving us perspective, etc., so that we can actually continually change things over time. And humans are uniquely great at that. Like, I really believe that. And I hope that people really take advantage of that. Kristen, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Likewise, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, Usha.